Welcome. In this episode I'm going to go over building a modular mister for Marthas and Monotubs. This mister can be expanded to many mist heads. If you wanted to run multiple Marthas, multiple Monotubs, it can do that. You could run dozens, perhaps hundreds or even thousands. It scales up very easily. It's inexpensive to produce. It's effective. I've been trying the two variants in a Martha and a Monotub, and they're both working quite well. I'm also going to cover some of the other issues that go along with this that will have to be addressed if you choose to use this design. So let's get down to the basics here. This is a 3D design that I printed. We have the lid, which fits on top of a Tupperware tub. There's an exhaust port and an input port for the fan. There's a hole where you attach a rubber grommet for the water supply. I've got a little loop here that you can use to zip tie cables and tubes with. There's another hole for the power supply for the mister, and this fits on top. There is a bottom bracket which fits on the other side of the lid. This has a hole for the fan and another hole for the mist port, which extends down so you can connect bilge tube to it, and then the holes for the mister power supply and the water supply pass through. I also printed a bracket that you can use to screw onto a Monotub and bolt that into place and attach the hose so you're not using duct tape. And then the final part, which is kind of important, is the diffuser splash cap. This basically keeps the water out of your fan. I do recommend using a waterproof fan if you're using the in the chamber model. I prepared the lid by taking a lid from a small plastic tub. You can get these at Walmart or Target, someplace like that. I put the bottom bracket on there where I could see it, and I used a very sharp scalpel to trace out lines through the holes. You could also use a marking pen. And then I cut these holes out with a Dremel tool. You can melt them out with a soldering iron. You can use a reciprocating saw. You can use a scalpel if you don't mind cutting your fingers off. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as it's reasonably accurate and you don't cut your fingers off. When you are assembling this, you want to use stainless steel bolts, nuts, and washers. If you use anything else, it will immediately rust, discolor the water, and make a huge mess. The lid has been bolted together at this point. Notice that there is a grommet in there for the water intake. If you don't use a grommet, you will get leaks of vapor coming out of there, and it will not work as well. Choosing proper sized bolts is a good idea. The mister is now hooked up to power. 24 volt for the mister itself, 12 volt for the fan, cranked up, blowing mist out like crazy. And then normally you would attach a tube, some bilge line to that port, and run that into your chamber or wherever you need your mist at if you're running this outside. In this case it is a waterproof fan, IP68 rated, so you could run this in a chamber also. I found having a filter in the reservoir to filter all the incoming water as it cycles back and forth is useful in keeping the particulates down. The marble is used to give it a little weight. This actually hangs down into the water, and the water will siphon back through here when it finishes topping off the reservoir. You just adjust the depth of the hose until you get it to the right point to maintain whatever level of water you want in the reservoir. Now about this point you're probably thinking, okay, you got this nice mister and it's going to hold enough water for maybe 3 hours. Wrong. What that hole and the tube does is it allows me to pump in fresh water and to top this off. So this gets hooked up to a 5-gallon bucket with a pump in there, and that pump is turned on for about 20 seconds every 30 minutes. This is long enough to add an inch or so of water and replenish whatever's been used, and then the excess water is siphoned right back out into the pump. My initial design had holes in the side of the container that would allow the excess water to drain off, but there was a tendency to leak. You had to have an extra hose in there, and then it dawned on me that I only need one hole and I can put the tube through the lid and not have to make holes in the side of the container which potentially will leak. And this also means that when I'm cleaning this, I can just take a spare tub, replace the tub that's in there, take the old tub out, clean it in the sink, wash it, scrub it down, swap it back in, and it makes my cleaning a lot easier. Running for a week or so, there will be some stuff, build up and things like that in the tubing. So I take a piece of wire with a bit of polyfill on the end of it, and I pull that through the tube to clean the tubes out. I scrub out the reservoir, clean off the pump. It takes me maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes if that, and then I'm done cleaning for the week. The reservoir will typically run for 4 or 5 days with a number of misters. Obviously you can go as large as you want on the reservoir. The only criteria is that it needs to be below the level of your misters so that the water will siphon back out when the pump stops. Making all of this work requires a controller that's accurate to within a couple seconds and is able to operate 3 or 4 different devices simultaneously and apply various time schedules to them. It's also helpful if it can measure humidity and temperatures so it can adjust those interactively. If anyone's interested, I can make another video on the controller itself, how that works and how I built it.